Hi guys, it's Mrs. Peterson, that lady who teaches art, and today I'm going to introduce you to our logo packet. So could you start by writing your first name and last initial at the top, and then we're going to read the directions together. It says you'll be creating a logo for yourself. Most people choose to do something with their initials. So we're going to stop right there, and I'm going to have you write your initials. My initials are EAP, or if I skip my middle name, just EP. Would you write your initials up there? And if you have 4, that's fine too. But you have the choice to decide if another image represents you better than your initials. We will talk about each of the principles of designs and techniques that artists use to create these principles in their artwork. Then you will create at least 5 thumbnail sketches of logos using that principle of design. There will be more room at the bottom of the page for additional sketches, and those additional sketches do not have to be following the same principle of design. These additional squares can use the same principle of design or be something completely different. Some days you'll have lots of ideas, and some days you might not have as many. But by the end of the unit, all the squares need to be filled in with different sketches of ideas for your personal logo. So, the first element of art is rhythm. Rhythm is movement, it's repeating, and it's visual tempo or beat. Please record those notes on your paper right now. So how do artists get rhythm into their artwork? First of all, they repeat lines. They repeat shapes. They can repeat hue or colors. And they repeat textures. Okay, the first logo we're going to look at from real life is this logo for Cisco. Cisco is an internet provider company, IT, I'm not even really sure, but their logo has rhythm in it. You can see that it repeats those lines, the shape, the color. It actually has movement too because they increase and then decrease. But this is a good example of rhythm. Okay. At the bottom, I have some ideas. So my first one, I repeated the line. I did diagonal lines to the side, and then I built my letters off of there. Now, instead of using my initials, you're going to do diagonal lines and build your initials off of there. And if I were you, I would copy my ideas just like they are on here. That will make these ideas a lot easier for you. Next, I'm going to do 2 different shape ones. So my first shape one has circles, and then I tried to make my letters kind of round to fit into those circles. My next shape idea, I did like some diamonds connected together, and then I tipped my letters the other way and did more capital letters. I kind of thought of like what letters would look like if they were on like a digital clock. My next one has different hues, or we might say shades. We're just using a pencil here. So I wrote the whole thing in cursive, and then I went back and darkened in the right side of each of the letters with my pencil. And then my last idea for this is pattern. I don't know, this is kind of between music notes and flannel. So I just did like thick line, 2 thin lines, thick line, 2 thin lines, thick line, and then I put my letters building off of there. So those were my ideas for rhythm. Let's turn the page for the next element. Balance has the sides seem equal or stable. It creates a sense that the elements are equally important. So the 1 big star seems equally as important as the 6 little stars. Record those notes on your packet. And feel free to pause if you need to. How do artists create balance in their artwork? They use symmetry. They use asymmetry, which is the opposite of symmetry. And then they use radial symmetry. Next up, we have balance. And here are the logo or the things I want you to learn about balance. So first of all, I just want to show you the difference between symmetrical balance when both sides match, and then asymmetrical balance when things still feel like it's stable, but they don't match exactly from side to side. So in the symmetrical, the green is in the middle, green is in the middle. Red is on the bottom outside, bottom outside. On the asymmetrical side, I have that big red piece at the bottom, and then there's empty space above it. But because the red is so big and bold, it balances out with all these smaller, less bold colored pieces. Okay, then we have balance in artworks. First, we have in architecture. So if we look at the Capitol building in Washington, D.C., you could literally divide it right down the middle and it would fold in half and touch each other. Like exactly, it's exact. The altarpiece, on the other hand, it does have symmetrical balance, but the things are not exactly the same. If you look at the two figures in red in the bottom corners, they're both wearing red and no one else is. So they definitely like balance each other out, but they're not exactly the same, even though they do bring balance to the piece. Okay, a little more art history with balance. So the first picture is a painting from Japan, and it has the mountain, like Mount Fuji, in the background, and that is really big, but it's lighter in shade. And then they have the detailed, dark, smaller figures down in the bottom left-hand corner that balance that out. The middle painting is a painting by Mary Cassatt. She actually went to Japan and studied and learned about asymmetrical balance. And so in her painting, she's got a lot of details in the woman's coat and hat. And then the rest of the painting, has that blue water and the sail and the boat. And then she's got this really dark figure down on the right side, balancing out all the lighter details on the other side. And then fast forward more forward in art history, and we get to David Hockney. He was, painting in the 50s and 60s, and his painting here, it's got like a big splash, right? And that has, just a big blue flat area. The diving board is pretty flat, and then you've got all those little details up at the back of that painting in the window and in the palm trees, but the splash really helps to balance out what's going on in the background. Okay, then switching to radial symmetry. So radial symmetry is if I start in the middle and I go out a certain distance, that whole distance all the way around from the middle is going to be the same. So looking at the first image, that's the rosette window from Notre Dame. If I go out to the edge of that first flower, those petals are all the same all the way around. And then if I go out to the next area, those petals are longer and skinnier, and they're all the way around. And then if I go all the way out to the edge, it's all the same all the way around. Okay, and then you can look at the other images as well, are repeating all the way around from the center. A couple logos that have balance. So the Mercedes-Benz logo, if I divide that in half, that actually does fold on itself. And it also has radial symmetry because all the way around, it's the same from the distance from the middle. And then same with the BP logo. The BP logo could be split from the top down and folded in half, but it's also radial symmetry. Out from the middle is the same all the way around. So let's look at one that can kind of confuse students. So right away, if you see that this one is a circle, you might be thinking, oh, it's probably radial. But if I look at the center and I try to go all the way around at a certain distance, it is not the same. This is actually just symmetrical balance where I could divide from the top down and it would fold in half and touch each other. Okay, let's look at this one. This is the Chanel logo. You're probably not thinking radial because right away you're like, well, there's no thing in the middle where everything is repeated around it. But which way is the line of symmetry? So the cool thing about this logo is you could divide it from the top down, or you could divide it across the middle and fold it, and it would be the same both ways. So it has two lines of symmetry, we call that. Okay, so what does this look like in real artwork? So my first one, I tried to make this symmetrical. I put my A in the middle, nice and strong as the middle of my logo here. And then I built off a little E and a little P, and I tried to make it feel balanced. I'm not sure that it is, but I tried. My next one, I just used my two initials, and I built a big, strong piece in the middle, and then off of that, my E backwards and my P. And I kind of thought of like typewriter font for this one. For my next one, this is asymmetrical. I made a big P, and then on the other side, I made little E and A. So make your last initial big, which maybe is more important to you. Sometimes our last name is really important. And then I made my E and A smaller. My next one has my E really important because maybe your first name is really important to you. I made that big and strong, and then my A and my P. And then I wasn't sure if this one was actually balanced because that E has a lot of weight and the A and P don't. So with this idea, I was like, let me try reverse of that. I tried to make my E seem less heavy and my A and my P more heavy. Okay, and I have one more idea. So this one you get, or I have two more. You get 7 on this instead of just 5. On this one, I put my E in the middle, and then I tried to make my letters mirror each other across for radial symmetry when things are around the middle. And then for this one, I just did a circle, a P, and mirrored that. It looks like a D, so I'm not sure that I like that as a real logo. Made my E and then made that mirror. But there's some ideas. The rest of these squares you can fill in with anything you like about your initials or another image. It doesn't have to be balanced, okay? Emphasis is when there's special attention or importance given to one part of the artwork. So this one star, just because it's filled in, has more importance, even though it's the same shape and the same size. And I have some ways that artists create that. So first of all, they use contrast. So they can have contrasting values that are opposites, lights and darks. They can have contrasting hues or colors. They can have contrasting pattern or textures, contrasting size, big and small. They can also use centering, things that are in the center, draw our eye to them. So we can put things in the center. Then they can also have leading elements. This is like 1-point perspective where the lines point towards something that makes our eyes draw to that. Okay, so let's take a look at how artists use emphasis in their artwork. So just want to give you some visuals of what we just took down in our notes. So on the left here, we have value. That one dark square or rectangle draws your attention because everything else is lighter, and that has just a more intense shade, so your eye is drawn to that. Same thing with color or hue. If you have all things that are kind of like sea green colors, and then you have one thing that's pink, that pink thing really stands out. Okay. We can also create emphasis when we have contrasting patterns and textures. So taking a look at the first one, we have a bunch of vertical gray up and down lines and then a scribble right over the top of that. And that really draws our attention because it's different. Same thing with size. Even though that big circle, it's still a circle. It's the same shape. It's the same color. Just because the size is different, it's bigger, our eye is drawn to that one. Okay, and this one, I think the visual really helps because it can be hard to explain without a visual. So centering is when you put something dead center. So the star that's right in the middle has more emphasis because my eye is being drawn to that, especially in this one when the other ones are cut off. Then my eye is really drawn to the one that's complete in the middle. And then the last way that we can do emphasis is by using leading elements. These are like your lines that draw back to 1-point perspective. It makes my eye want to look down this visual hallway. So here are some examples of emphasis. First, I have my letters with a thick side and then a thin side. On this one, I have one letter dark and the rest are light. On this one, I tried to make one letter in cursive and the other two are pretty plain. On the next one, I did cursive for my first name, a very simple for my middle name, and then kind of like a typewriter font for my last name. So all kind of different in that one. And then in this one, I did the EAP in cursive lowercase, but then I went back and made that P more like a typewriter. Down here, I have different sizes. I have very small EA and a big P. On the next one, I have a large P in the middle, and then a small E and A. On this one, instead of centering my last name, I centered my first name and then put the A and the P on the sides. And then these ones are leading. So I tried to make this like the lines bend down like the hallway so that your eye is drawn to that A. And then I tried to do the same thing on this one. I'm not sure that it looks great, but I just connected them all. I connected the A and the P. Not sure that I would use that as my logo, but there's an idea for you. All right, you guys, that's it for this video. Come back for part 2. I can't wait to see what you create.